Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Cambodia Global Dialogue of Southeast Asia TV. Tonight, we will be talking about skill, development,
Cambodia's place in ASEAN,
and Cambodia's place in the ASEAN. See, it's quite interesting. I love, one thing I love about this show is that it's very spontaneous. I invite a good friend, Sandra, who's the expert in labor employment issue, and I always have a free labor. Dr. May Kalyan, a good friend, a great policy maker, retired. He have all the time in the world, and is volunteering to step in to challenge our discussion. So Bong, thanks again for taking the time to help us. It's great to be retired. At least you have time to help.
Yes.
So, Sandra, I mean, the last time we had this show was about 2 years ago. Things have changed. But anyway, just to refresh, a bit the memory of our audience, please could you say a bit about yourself and a bit about the organization you had, but also stress a bit more on your role in the region also in that particular area.
Thank you, Siphana. So I work with HR in Cambodia, which is a company that works on recruitment, works on outsourcing and compliance, and ensuring that workers are paid the right wages at the right levels, as well as ensuring compliance with the law and contributions to Social Security.
Yeah.
I'm also the Vice President of Campiba, which is the employers' organization that looks after labor and social affairs in Cambodia. It represents all industries in Cambodia and plays a really important role in legislative development in Cambodia, like the trade union law, negotiating of minimum wages, the development of our labor courts.
Yes.
And Camfiba also represents industry globally and within the ASEAN region.
Yes.
In terms of migration issues, in terms of being a member of the ILO and representing in Geneva at the International Labour Conference. So it's a very important organization in Cambodia, but also within ASEAN. As all the borders open up and opportunities grow, it's really important that employers take a deep interest in how we look at regional labor markets and opportunities, but also in terms of how our Cambodian workforce integrates within ASEAN and is protected within ASEAN. So that is the role of Campiba, and certainly very happy to be here and to discuss labor, skills, and Cambodia's place
Would
in
you explain
ASEAN.
what is Campiba?
Cambodia.
The Cambodian Federation of Employers and Business Associations.
Yes.
It is an umbrella association, and all industry associations, country chamber of commerces are members of Campiba, and so it coordinates at a policy level all labor and social issues, and then we will work closely with the Chamber of Commerce on how business issues develop and diversification of the economy and how labor fits into the business and investment side of things.
Bong Kalyan, I think how I see your contribution in this dialogue here is more you wearing the hat as the senior advisor of the Supreme National Economic Council.
Right.
You and I are both advising the SNEC, we call it in short Supreme National Economic Council, SNEC, and we were part of the development of the Cambodia Industrial Development Policy, which was launched by Prime Minister Hun Sen last year. So there's a good chunk of skill issue, into the context of how we get Cambodia to be at least a semi-industrialized nation. So I expect your contribution a lot in that perspective here. So Sandra, let's set the stage a bit. You've been here a while in this country. You're working a lot with the employment sector. People look at the organization for to solve their hiring issue with the top level management all the way down to the workforce. Paint us a good background on Cambodia labor and employment, sector a bit.
Cambodia's employment is changing quite rapidly, and I think previously, where we were only focused on garment sector as the biggest employment sector, which it certainly is today, we see a big growth in service sector, which is very important. We have seen over the last couple of years fantastic development in the education sector in terms of being more strict, a lot of reforms taking place, but we still have a long way to go in strengthening our whole primary, secondary education system. And really, primary and secondary education is the foundation of the future of the workforce, and it has to remain a priority in terms of investment and development for the future of Cambodia's competitiveness.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
If we don't invest today, our workforce in the long run will suffer because we won't be competitive.
Right.
What is important, given where Cambodia is today, and that our education system was not as strong as it could be and is continuously developing, is that our technical vocational training sector develops, and that private sector is more engaged in education and training of the workforce.
Yes.
We do not have an extensive formalized technical vocational education training sector that is fully functional at the moment. There is a lot of investment in the policy framework, the certificate levels, the competencies that are being developed so that we are developing skills that are ASEAN specific and where an employer in another country can look at a qualification and go, oh, you have these skills. And I think that is our biggest challenge as private sector and government to invest in, to make sure that our Cambodian workforce is really qualified for the opportunities that are available in Cambodia, but also within the region, because there's a lot of migration that is already taking place, but to make sure that we remain competitive.
Well, what's your take on that?
I like to share a few points on this, just to complement what Sandra was saying. First of all, you're talking about industrial development policies that will work together. But before that, in rectangular strategies, number 3, we talk about the same thing.
Yes.
About the human resources and skilled labor. I think this is the paramount kind of policies target. This is number 1. Number 2, I think over the time, as Sandra and so on, I think we talk about mismatch, skill development over time. I think thing has been moving our way. That I'm glad to be able to contribute somehow to this process.
You are also, the chairman of the board of the Royal University of Phnom Penh,
That's
right?
That's right.
Which is Cambodia, flagship university, right? And what has the university contribute in this context, right? And at a higher education level.
That's right. Things I've been there for 2-3 years now, knowing that education, because you preach about education, about human resources and policy. Why don't you do yourself? Now it is time. Put me on the spot to do the thing. But just to share with you that we do so much reform. I could not go to detail, but just reform. We get some saving and plow back into the system. We change the system.
What do you aim to get through that reform?
Reform basically two aims. One is to lift up the qualities. 2 is to sort of problem of mismatch that we're talking here, right? The 2 things have to come together. Knowing that RUPP, Royal University of Phnom Penh, is a flagship in technology, science and technology.
Yes.
Because if you look at the history of Cambodia, development of education, because we are emerging from war, we are limited capacity, our public sector was not strong enough, let's say fair kind of development going on, but it's so far so good. We could not complain about that. But it takes time to change gradually. You have to emphasize on the science and technologies that are missing. Before, private sectors, they have PowerPoint.
Yes.
Right? They want professors.
Yeah.
They could teach anything. Okay, marketing, accounting, anything. Yeah,
that's the easy one.
An easy one.
Yeah.
Right? But the difficult one is now science and technologies have to be established. That need a lot of investment and money. Normally in other countries, it's not the private sectors. It's the government have to invest a lot. But luckily now we have some saving. We improve our laboratories. Right? We improve our system. Now we're talking about making a biopark, biology park. Right? So that to educate youngsters that have some interest into the system. And the government has approved, I don't remember correctly, between 3 to 4 million building, because STEM building.
Oh, okay.
STEM building.
Science, technology, engineering, and math.
And math.
Okay.
Right.
So, Sandra, from an employer perspective, right? You know, what do they demand? What do they want? And is that something that you know what Dr. Kalyan has mentioned? Is that something along that line? Of course, they're just starting. I mean, you know, building a building is one thing. It takes a while to train people and everything. But from your employer perspective,
I think in primary and secondary education and higher education, there have been tremendous reforms, and they're all going in the right direction. I think from an employer perspective, technical vocational education and training, TVET as it is commonly known, is lagging behind. We don't feel it's moving.
okay,
So there are two things here. One, the role of government, and two, the role of private sector.
yes.
Because I think in terms of long-term development, workforce development very much has to include the engagement of private sector. Especially relating and coming back to diversification policy. When you look at our overall workforce, we have exceptional primary enrollment rates, but we have extremely low secondary enrollment rates in secondary education. That's a big problem because people who are coming into the labor market do not have the full set of life skills, numeracy and literacy skills. They are working though, that's a great thing, but their economic opportunities are lost in terms of going further to work in more sophisticated jobs. One, because we don't have more sophisticated jobs, but two, because we don't have training opportunities for them. And I will use the garment sector as an example. It's a very low value added sector at the moment, and a very big focus on trying to diversify up the value chain and integrate vertically into regional value chains. So how do we get our workforce from where it is today to move up into more sophisticated types of jobs?
But Sandra, let me interject a bit here. It's a vicious circle, right? It's a catch-22. For me, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we can talk about the garment industry. Okay, fine. We need job. We need industry.
Sure.
But we are now in a moment in time where the country is stable, secure, developed fast enough that we should be thinking of moving up the value chain, right? So in this sense, policy-wise, it's very important that we move up, right? Because if not, if we just focus on the garment industry, we will continue to perpetuate the capacity within the garment industry, which at most will be here, while the aim of the government will be to go here. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
And I totally agree with you. To get there, to bring in those innovative technology companies that we want to come in, to have more sophisticated manufacturing sector, whether it's building parts of cars or parts of agriculture machinery, making local products, requires a different skill level. So the question is, the garment workers, for example, want better jobs, higher wages.
Yes.
How do we get them there?
Yes.
Is it going to be private sector training, or do we have formal education opportunities that are shorter,
Yes, yes.
quicker in terms of learning skills
Okay.
for people to move across industries and move into newer, higher paid jobs? And I think that's part of our total economic development, part of our total graduation out of low income
Yes, yes.
country. And part of what we need to continuously do to move from low middle income to middle income to
Yes, yeah.
to higher income. So it's going to be a continuous process that we need to do. If we look at the workforce profile of industries today, especially the large employers, 90% of jobs require technical vocational education training, skills training, real skills training, so that you can get that job, do the job, be highly productive when you add that job. A really interesting study that I did recently with the ADB.
Sandra, I think I'm going to cut you short right now, just for a break.
Yep.
And then it's when we come back, you can delve into that study.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Sandra, okay, we took a break when you were about to go into the ADB report. Go ahead.
So a recent study that we did to look at the workforce makeup showed that 93% of the workforce requires technical vocational education. If we want to attract large investors for higher value added jobs, which certainly there's a lot of dynamic activities happening to do that, we do need to look at how do we supply and skill the workforce from that perspective. Or how do we incentivize private sector to invest in the training and do the training?
Yes.
So I feel, and I must say that the skills challenge is not a Cambodia only challenge. Everybody, every country, every ASEAN country has this challenge of how do we develop skills, how do we continue to move up the value chain. So the big question is, what is the role of government? And how are we going to incentivize private sector to address skills challenges so that everybody is accountable in developing the work?
Sandra, before I turn to Mongolian, you talk about skill, but I think it's a lot of issue of having skill, but that does not match with the employer requirement. What's your view on that one? Is that true, the statement?
That's always going to be a statement. And I think what is really important is that our primary and our secondary education enables us to think and apply ourselves to different situations. I always say to young people, it doesn't really matter what you study. I always say a human resource manager should be a marketing manager. Every other manager in a company needs to be a human resource manager. Every job requires something of anything that you learn. And it's our ability to be able to apply that to different situations, which is really, really important. So here I think it's our primary and secondary education as well as health in growing up that allow you to apply yourself in different situations, and how employers can recruit talent and leverage skills that people have, and not say, I need a workforce who can do X, and if they don't have X, they can't do the job. So I think there always has to be a balance. But certainly the STEM skills we were talking about earlier, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, we do need to invest in that more in Cambodia.
Yeah. Well, wearing your hat as a policy advisor.
I have many hats.
Yes. Now this one is a policy advisor. When it comes to the industrial development policy, there's the government do recognize this issue. What is your, how do you see the government as providing the right incentive,
Right.
in this case, for private sector to step into the vocational training, for example.
I think only 2 or 3 points just to come back a bit to emphasize the importance of human resources and skill. As I mentioned earlier in other speech, economic 101, that any production system have capital, technologies, labor to produce output, to make money, to make value added. The point is there's a labor and skill come together here in the equation, right?
Yeah.
So our objective of the government is not just to have employment for employment,
Yes.
right? The employment to improve our growth, economic growth, as well as the livelihood of our people, right? The life. I think there are so many objectives there. So when we talk about livelihood of other people, meaning that labor is let's assume labor is unskilled labor,
Yeah.
right? But when it comes to technologies, it's skill, right? So if you could shift a normal labor, unskilled labor, right, to the skilled labor, to technical labor, this is the way that we help develop our economy as well as the improvement of life.
But how do you incentivize the private sector? Because to me the issue is always a dichotomy now in the education system. Private sector tend to go for the easy route. I have a land, I'm going to build a big building, and here is my school. I'm going to hire a teacher, put a PowerPoint, and the teacher talk to that, the student take note, and then they graduate with unemployable skill. Then you have the other part, which is vocational training, which is very expensive because you need machinery, you need lab, you need testing material every day, right? It costs. It's like in the hospitality industry. People think, oh, I'm gonna start a hospitality hotel school. But to cook, right? You cannot cook air. You gotta buy the vegetables, you gotta buy the meat, you gotta buy the steak to teach the chef how to cook the steak. And these are a daily expense. This dichotomy, we need both. We need soft skill from university. At Royal University you do that. But at the vocational training, you need that too. But to me, I think, what can the government do in terms of incentivizing private sector to invest in the sector so that they don't just go into education with something that is easy, but that don't produce an employable workforce?
I think when we say incentivize, in a layman term, is about subsidy. Right?
I don't want to talk about subsidy though.
Incentive subsidy. Subsidy is one thing, but I think I'm not really total expert on this. But I think there are 2 ways of doing things. One is you establish your TVET school. Right?
Yes.
It's really school, right? And another way is to work with the company itself, right? To have inside called in-house training. I know so many Japanese company who do this now, and he send the staff to Thailand, for example, to their other factories.
Yes.
But we do not have system to help them yet. All our expenditure on this is expenditure of the company.
Yes.
I think our government have to take care of this,
Yes.
to consider this, because it's really a training. Because training,
It has to be tax deductible. That's for one.
that's right. Deductible. It is a subsidy, basically. Do not pay tax, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of system, because it depends on situations. I think, as you mentioned about setting a school, it costs a lot of money, this and that and that. This is another system, but another system. The quicker one is to think about a system in which to promote people, to incentivize a company to send more people, because it's important, because it's a real job. Because those people who send to China, to Malaysia, to Thailand, they come the leader, and the leader train other people in Cambodia, because the only selected one could go.
Yes, because it's expensive.
Expensive.
Well, and Sandra, what's your view on that one? What can the private sector do, and what sort of again help, if I can use the word, I don't want to use the word subsidy, from the government, for example?
I think we should look at education as a investment sector.
Yes, I like that.
I think Cambodia is so well positioned in ASEAN with borders on different countries, Vietnam, Thailand, Laos. We've got economic zones on our borders. Higher education, there's a lot of high quality international higher education, AIT in Thailand, going to Singapore with international relations with high quality universities in Europe, INSEAD in the US. The Australian technical vocational training system is really quite big and a revenue driver. So I always question whether or not Tibet education should be an investment sector. Right?
Okay.
So you have government sector, you have banking sector, you have service sector. Should education be viewed as an investment sector?
Even though it's more like a cross-cutting issue.
Yes, where people can come and learn skills here. Remember that labor, jobs is not only Cambodia today. That when we talk about labor, other countries have the same challenges in training.
But Sandra, if people invest into higher education, private sector university, right, which we see throughout the country, why can it not be in for the Tibet?
Well, I think there it's really possible. When you talk about incentives for private sector, I think there's opportunity for public-private partnerships, and I think a lot of people have spoken about this, but we don't have a framework. What is a public-private partnership? Can the government give land and a building and electricity, and private sector bring in all the rest? I think there are opportunities that we can look at in terms of being creative. At the end of the day, to bring an investor into the country means that you need qualified labor, or you need to be able to convince the investor that you can train up the workforce very quickly. And there I think Cambodia has a really, really good advantage, because we learn quickly. We very diverse in language skills actually, and learn language skills very quickly. And I think, as you point out, Japanese investment has certainly showed how adaptable Cambodian workforce can be to moving into other industries. And so for the moment, I think the focus is private sector has to invest in that. But we also have to think about the fact that the majority of employment in Cambodia is coming from SMEs. And SMEs don't have the capacity to have in-house training facilities.
Yes, I agree.
Our entrepreneurs have smaller businesses which are really successful, and they do struggle with training. Where can I send my workers to learn service skills, to learn retail skills? And there needs to be opportunities for our SME sector, which are the engine of growth in Cambodia, to provide their workforce with training. So there's the big investors, which are very important, but certainly we cannot forget about that SME sector. I think in my research, when you look at different provinces, there's a clear development of type of industries in different provinces.
Yes.
And I think government Tibet education should rather do less, so not try and cover a lot of curriculum.
Sure.
Just focus on what your provincial economic makeup is.
Yeah.
So
give me one or two provinces.
Okay, Siem Reap is an easy one.
Yeah.
It's full of hotel industry, it's full of service industry. Tibet in that sector should really be focused on hospitality industry. Don't sophisticated IT training and things like that is not the biggest need there. It can be better done in another city. If you look at Kampot and different areas, you have a combination of industrial skills needed, but also hospitality skills. So I think if you do bottom-up planning as opposed to top-down, this is the policy in training. You need to have a combination.
Yeah, I can see you more bottom up and you more top down.
we need both.
Yes. We need both. Yes.
We need both. So at the end of the day, it's a have to synchronize.
Yes.
Right.
One point. Yeah. And just to go back to about mismatching and share with you what we did in IUPP.
Yes.
We know that we discuss. We know that this is a problem. But instead of going to theoretical, academic exercise, we do a practical thing.
Like,
for example, in our universities, we have a called strategic and planning team to give direction, vision, where we go from now. And then in that team, we invite private sector to sit together with us.
okay.
Right? So it's very practical. And from time to time, we invite the private sectors to come to discuss with us. Please advise us on curriculum or where we go to forward. I'd like to pick on Sandra talking about the importance of primary, secondary, and higher education. This is a natural link.
It's a continuum.
A continuum link. But realistically, economically, because Cambodia, we start almost maybe from scratch, I could say, right? So now, because chicken and egg, some people say, okay, I train a lot of people, but nobody hiring me. So now, let's be practical. I start from higher education, right? And then we work back to that. We have to make sure that people graduate from higher education having a right job, right first, and then we work back. We have time to work back. I think this is a big issue down here.
Another good time to take a break,
Okay.
but when we come back, I want to focus on two things. One is a bit about labor migration and the impact on our economy, and that also linked to what I want to see 10 years down the road. Where and how do we do in that particular, education and Tibet, in terms of contributing to helping Cambodia go to the next level of economic development, meaning, how to become in 10 years' time a true middle income country. All right, we'll take a break. Sandra, before we go on to the next point, as I said about, we were going to focus on the labor migration. The last statement that Dr. Mekalyan mentioned, you agree or you don't agree?
I have a different view.
It's fine. That's what democracy is all about.
I think that the issue of training at higher education and the issue of education at higher education and people having a good job after that is very much also related to the employment market and do we have the right jobs for people. So I don't feel we should focus on higher education and then work backwards. For me, the long-term success of Cambodia is your people coming through primary and secondary education today. And we cannot not focus on that, because that will mean another 10 years of young people not having high quality primary and secondary education, and so it has to be addressed at the same time.
Yes.
For me, that's very important for long-term success.
You tend to disagree with him, and I tend to disagree with you. Okay. So okay, we'll go full circle. My view is like this. Okay, the last 10 years since to go back the history a bit, when we entered the WTO, right, we have very clear policy commitment to open the education sector. Okay. And I'm so glad that Dr. Naron now is the Minister of Education, Youth and Sport. He's doing awesome reform, right? But the fact remains that you still have a core of Cambodian graduates for the last 10 years or so who, nothing wrong with them. It's just that they graduate, but they have skill, they have talent, they have diploma that is not reflective of the need of the market, right? So you still have to take care of them. your arguments that yes, we have to start from the bottom up, but that's the track of that we want to do today. Moving forward next 10 years, we have a continuum of well-planned STEM people, right? But the current one, we cannot abandon them. How do we take their hand, sharpen their skill, because nonetheless they have 4 years of higher education. So what are the measures that you can take them and then resharpen the skill, refocus the skill with a bit more training, they can become employable. So that's something that I think all of us are right in our own way. It means that we all have to do all that.
Right.
You know, Cambodia, we start from scratch 20 years ago. We need to do everything at the same time, and that's a harsh reality of a country that starts from empty hand.
If I might add to this, nothing. I think we don't have any differences here. It's just from a practicalities point of view. What Sandra was saying was absolutely correct. You're also absolutely correct. There's a big picture way that education for all. Everyone have to get education from primary school. It's a thing that I think Excellency is not only taking care of this. We do not say that we forget about it. No. But at the same time, what I'm trying to say is practical point of view, because the vision might be big, but in terms of budget, how much the government could do this effectively, it is a reality, right?
Yeah.
So that what I'm trying to say is practically, we touch our own pocket, how much we could do effectively. I do not say they forgot about it. We have to continue to do this, but if the resource is so stretched,
but that's why the role of the private sector to step in.
That's right.
Can I add another point?
Yes, please.
Sure.
I think we must not forget that there is a responsibility on each individual himself as well.
I agree.
To take initiative, but also to take a chance.
Yes.
You might not get the job you want at the salary level you want.
Yes.
And we know Cambodia has very low unemployment.
Yes.
However, our big challenge is we have quite high underemployment, which means people are not fully employed and fully productive. So for me, a lot of the challenge is not only what is government going to do, because I think, as you say, there's limited resources, we have to focus. Private sector also can't do everything. And it is up to the individual to take a risk, take a chance, invest in yourself. If you studied accounting and you can't find an accounting job, can you do something else?
Yes.
Can you do sales?
You know, there's an expression.
Can you do something different? And I think it's the whole ecosystem that needs to come together.
I'm being a bit more philosophical, right? There's expressions that help yourself, and God will help you, right? So in French, you say, aide-toi et le ciel t'aidera, right? So I mean,
Not le Dieu.
Le ciel, Dieu is God, right? But anyway, I think let's move to the next item that is also of interest, which is labor migration. You work a lot in the region, right? So how is the labor migration issue affecting or benefiting our country? It's always two sides of the coin, yeah?
Yes, there's always two sides of the coin, and I don't think there's a definitive answer. We know in a lot of research studies, migration can actually be harmful for families.
Yes.
Back home, you lose touch with the family, the family nucleus. I think the majority of our migration is workforce.
Yes.
In search of better opportunities, money-wise. And they get those opportunities in other countries. Are the working conditions fabulous? Would they rather work at home? I imagine most would rather work at home if the opportunities were in Cambodia to be at home.
Yeah.
I think that the Ministry of Labour has done a great job in terms of promoting international opportunities for young people. But I do think that if we can diversify the economy, create more and different types of jobs
At home.
at home, our workforce will stay at home.
And may come back.
I think migration is positive because people can go overseas, they
Yes.
can learn a different culture, they can learn skills, and they can bring those skills
Yes,
back.
yes.
That also includes the economic income that comes back home. And research has shown people who migrate and work in different countries or migrate within Cambodia results in farms being more mechanized.
Okay.
So that's how you see the agriculture industry changing.
So the effect is more than just remittance sending back
Absolutely.
home, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's exposure. Like we have some 35,000 Cambodian who are, working in Korea, for example.
Right.
And Korea is not a country that lack technology and lack mechanization.
Right. And if we can get those industries to start up in Cambodia, for sure, you have family members working overseas who come and visit here. Would they rather be with their families? Yes, I'm sure they would rather be with their families, but we don't have those types of jobs for them yet.
Yes. Well, I see migration as a two-dimensional here. One is a domestic migration, a person from Kampong Cham will come to Phnom Penh, right? And the other one, somebody from Cambodia would go to Thailand or go to, Korea, I won't mention Malaysia, because I like to see Cambodia going to other country for more, I'll say, specialized skill, right? Even like, for example, they go to Korea, they work in this high-rise construction. These are real skill.
Yeah.
They're climbing 20-story.
Right.
I mean, they are building, iconic building, and when they come back, that skill can be transposed to help build a Cambodian high-rise. I sure don't want Cambodian to go to be somebody's mate, okay? I mean, not to be disrespectful of employment, but we should not be focusing on, sending our women culturally very shy into a place where it's a bit difficult. Anyway, but it's their choice. It's their choice. We cannot stop that. But what's your view?
I'd like to say that just comparison, water flow from high to low.
Yes.
Water from high to low, but income, people movement from low to high.
To high.
Yeah, that is unavoidable.
Yeah.
Because our historical context. When we open the window, the door, Thailand is higher than us.
Yes,
so of
yes.
course, people go to Thailand.
Yes.
Of course, it's a good and bad about this thing, as you discussed. But I just like to emphasize is the pull, the pull force, because Thailand, because of its economy, because high income, the pull of labor to there.
Labor, yeah.
But now we had to find magnetic in
Yes.
Cambodia to pull them back,
Yes.
Right.
To pull them back. So what is this? This is a question that asked, right? So I could say one is very obvious is development of our agriculture sectors.
Yes.
Okay. One. And two, industry are we talking about and
yeah.
services.
Yeah.
But agriculture is a source because I feel a bit scared to see our hollowing of our agriculture sectors. That's why I keep saying until people think, okay, you are too strong, you're too harsh, and so on. Okay, but I'm as a guy at this age, I'm worried about my country, my sectors. Agriculture is hollowing.
But to me, when people speak about agriculture, we should not be restricted to think agriculture as agriculture.
Yeah.
We should think about agro industry. We should think about mechanization. We should think about value addition using technology. See, so to me, Cambodia is primarily an agrarian society.
That's right.
But we should use nowadays with all this advanced technology, the free flow of machinery, of trade, of goods and service. We should capitalize on being part of ASEAN.
And we tend to focus too much on rice. agriculture is equal right.
Yeah.
It's not the case.
It is one commodity,
It's not
but there's
commodity.
other, right?
Yeah. So technologies and things have to be
Yes.
been. So we have to really the big thinking on agriculture sector. I think as a country,
Yes.
we have to have a big picture of how to revitalize the agriculture sector.
And by doing that, you can bring these people back. Because look, let's face it, right? You say, the wage in Thailand is higher, right? I don't know how high it is. It's definitely higher. But when you factor in the cost of going across the border, the cost of living, the cost, so many hidden costs, a person may feel that if there's a similar equivalent, slightly less pay in my home village, in my home province, I would prefer to stay home. I have my son help me. I'm helping my wife do the silk weaving and all this sort of thing.
Sure.
The income is better. The social fabric of our society remains strong.
Right.
To me, the dark side of migration is the dissolution of a social fabric.
Absolutely.
Sandra?
Yes, absolutely agree.
Absolutely.
And I think the Philippines is a really good example of that has been studied very well. And I certainly agree that there's so many hidden costs in working in different countries, especially Thailand, where there's a lot of informal migration, and especially in the informal migration. I think people who are working in Korea certainly are sending home a lot of money, but I don't think that life is particularly easy in those countries because you're still a worker. That said, I think for 5 years, 10 years perhaps, migration is a way of building skills. If you target countries like Korea, where you have...
And soon Japan.
And soon Japan. Well, they have a very aging population,
Yes,
so they
soon
need
Japan.
a young workforce. But it's about looking at migration as an opportunity to build our workforce skills where we can,
Yes.
and you can do that quickly on the job. But also having the magnet, as you say, to pull them back into the country when we have those jobs, when we have the new industries and the diversified industries.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of good opportunities, but they do need to be carefully managed.
And that's why I think I put a lot of hope in the implementation of the industrial development policy. So anyway, I think we're coming to the end. Perhaps I'm going to ask you to share a bit what you see the vision in Cambodia, what we have to do 10 years from now to get Cambodia to where we want Cambodia to be in terms of skill, employment, everything. What's your wish?
My wish is that we absolutely focus on primary and secondary education and never take that focus away. And that is where in the medium term I feel the most investment should go for education. I think that higher education is certainly reforming and doing all the right things in terms of laboratories, what's happening at RUPP as a flagship to show the rest of other universities how to move forward is really important. And then I hope to see that there is that TVET or skills training becomes an investment destination for Cambodia, because it's not only about training our workforce, because we can train all the workforce around us as well in ASEAN.
At this age, I have a very practical...
At your age?
At your age, practical wishes. That not much, glamorous Cambodia, just normal countries as other, because we have a burden past.
Yes.
Yeah, from the past. So we could dream of something, but we have to know ourselves also what we could do. So I wish to have, as I mentioned, an early stability, peace, right? People live nicely, not more fighting. And the development, okay, you go fast, you go slow. It's like running marathon, right?
Yeah.
You run fast, but only maybe 10 kilometers, then you slow down, right? So slowly, peacefully, and when everybody are happy, social harmony, right? Social equity, social justice, keeping our environment right. I think 4,000, 5,000 doesn't make much difference to me. It's just a matter of speed. Right?
Okay, good. Well, let me try to wrap up a bit how I see a dialogue have focus, and what do we draw out of this short 45 minutes dialogue. My view is that we come a long way. So many things to do in a short time frame with empty hand. We build our education system, we're reforming the education system, and yet there are still other work that need to be done. But in terms of moving up the industrial scale, we distinguish two things: that agriculture is not just agriculture in itself. There are the whole dimension of industrializing the agricultural sector, and then you have the actual industry in itself that we like to move up the scale to get Cambodia to reach a middle income, say, in about 10 years. And behind all this grand vision, there's a whole aspect of capacity building, into the skill sector, the vocational training, the STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and math. All these things need to take place. And then at the same time, one have to find way to incentivize, more the private sector to step into what you like to call a sector, which is TVET, so that they can invest in that sector to provide skill to people that I believe need to be employed, right? So I think all in all, labor migration has also some good thing about it also, aside from having some difficult effect of splitting the family, but it does bring in medium term skill, exposure, experience, in advanced society, advanced economy to bring home to develop. So I think all in all, let's call this a work in progress. And I think we should be happy for a country that started from 20 years ago from nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Sandra, Bong, thank you so much for coming, and look forward to see you the next time.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So good night, and I'll see you next week.